Over to you, Chief.
All right, all right. Well, happy midday to all you listeners and true believers out there joining us from all points around Texas and obviously way beyond today. We're in the middle of August weather here in Austin, which means it's hot, of course, but it's still keeping it weird. Most importantly, the Texas Military Department. This is our home. Again, loyal listeners, welcome back. It's been a little while, sir, since we've done a little warp drive. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 10. If you hadn't made 1 through 9, hey, you got here at the right time. Right, episode 10 is going to be awesome. It's our application for professional growth in writing and other topics that can vary at times. And today's a great example of that. Colonel Hildebrandt, Commander DeVarty, and now I believe, sir, the new Deputy Commander for Operation Lone Star. Again, congratulations and condolences to you, sir. And you've been busy or what? I mean, it's been a little while.
Yeah, I have 3 titles. It keeps me pretty busy. But yeah. So great news today, though, is we have retired Major General Mick Ryan. He served for more than 3 decades in the Australian Army, pretty much commanding at every level from the combat engineer units up to the Australian Defence College. And he's got a couple deployments under his belt. So some of these will sound familiar, some won't. So East Timor, Iraq, Afghanistan, we're familiar with, right? He's also worked inside at the Pentagon as part of the Joint Staff, and busy there shaping coalition strategy along with our senior leaders. So General Ryan is widely recognized as one of the sharpest minds of the future warfare. I get a lot. I subscribe to his Substack and get his emails. It's pretty good stuff. He's the author of War Transformed, White Sun War: The Campaign for Taiwan, which highly recommended. It's a great book. And I haven't read the other one yet, sir. And most recently, The War for Ukraine: Strategy and Application Under Fire. That's your new one, right? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So he's also a senior fellow with the Lowry Institute and adjunct fellow at CSIS and an influential voice online at War in the Future, where he breaks down lessons of Ukraine, military adaptation, and the role of technology in the 21st century. So we're super excited you're on. Part of what we do with War Tribe, sir, is we talk about the writing process, and it's amazing how much you put out. So welcome, Mick, and over to you for anything in general you want to talk about before we start hitting you with some questions from the writing roundtable.
Yeah, well, thank you. Firstly, it's great to be with you. I've visited Texas a couple of times. I'll, in fact, be back in Austin in a month's time to launch another report. Really honoured to be asked to talk about this. A couple of things I thought I'd mention. Firstly, I'm actually doing a PhD in writing, in creative writing. I'm just about finished with that because as much as I write, I felt that I still had a lot more to learn.
Yeah.
So I've gone through this process with 2 wonderful supervisors over the last couple of years, written a new novel as well as some other bits and pieces that you'll probably see in due course. Yeah. I think I'm a better writer for it, but I guess the proof will be in how many people read my stuff subsequently.
Yeah.
Another thing I'd just point out is a few years ago I participated in a project and it resulted in a book, if you haven't already seen it, called Why We Write. Yeah. It was led by US Army Colonel Nate Finney, who... if you don't know him, is kind of founding member of a few projects, including Strategy Bridge and the Military Writers Guild, which for your folks there, if you're not part of, I certainly recommend you follow and if not join. And it's a great community of writers there in the United States, as well as in your allies and partners around the world, dedicated to fostering better writing about the profession of arms, which at the end of the day is the reason we're all here. We want to be better soldiers, better professionals, better servants of our nations, and part of that is being better communicators and writers. So I'd recommend that book to you, once again, called Why We Write. Steve Leonard, obviously, another great US Army retired officer, doctrine man, was part of that effort as well. If you don't follow him, I certainly recommend it. I just finally finish off by saying, writing has been part of who I've been as an officer for a couple of decades. I published my first piece as a major, which was actually a piece on why the Australian Army needed better mechanised combat engineer capability. and I'm about to go up to a brigade in Northern Australia and see their brand new M1 breaching capabilities, which took us a while to get, but is nice to see. But writing has been a core part of how I saw leadership, because it helped me hone purpose. It helped me explain to my soldiers why we were doing what we're doing, whether it was on the border with Indonesia and East Timor, in Iraq, or leading a task force in Afghanistan. And it's also been something that helped me after deployments, to write about things is cathartic. I spent a long time in Baghdad in 2005 with US Army forces there, a lot of time on the streets of Baghdad, and it was a difficult time. And I found writing, just helped me kind of think through the post-deployment and what we'd done there and why it was important. So for me, writing isn't a discretionary part of being a professional officer. It's a core part, and it's a really important part of being a leader. And, I hope in the discussion today, we can work our way through the questions resolving around why writing, write good communication skills is an essential part of being a member of the profession of arms.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we are quite familiar with that book, Why We Write. It's on for our program. We've highlighted that a couple times. It's brilliant. I would be remiss, apologize to the writing roundtable. So you met Chief Lightsey when he introduced the show. He's our band director for the 36th Infantry Band. We also have our Air Force counterpart, Major Mariah Gagon. She is a counselor, our legal mind that keeps us straight. She doesn't really keep us straight because we're pretty outlandish, but she does her best, I guess. We have, excuse me, Lieutenant Colonel T.J. Clifton. He's up there in the J3 in Austin at the Joint Force Headquarters. We have our resident research and development guy, Sergeant First Class Jared Krause. He's part of the. So I don't know how familiar you are with the Guard and stuff, but he's part of the Texas State Guard, which is in the true sense of militia when you think about National Guard. So he's there. He's our AI guru. In fact, Mick, if you're challenged in your PhD program to hey, how do I write with AI? Jared is absolutely your guy. He's all into it. And then I think Sam Ellison may have dropped off. He's one of our aspiring writers that has joined the crew, but I think he's having some connection issues, so we may see him pop back up. But that's the writing roundtable right there for you, Mick. And so they keep this thing pretty lively. They keep me in check. I don't always do a good job sometimes, and so they'll point that out to me. So we keep each other honest. You mentioned a couple things that highly interest me, especially when we talk about writing in the military. And you talked about writing being one of your core responsibilities or core attributes as a military professional, and knowing how task saturated we get. I mean, you were in the military. It's the government likes to use the military as a Swiss Army knife for everything, right? We solve problems. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. How do you find the time to make this part of your core? Kind of at echelon as you kind of grew up in the ranks, and you're like, hey, was there any one more time more difficult or more easy when you're trying to make writing kind of centrifugal to your identity as a military professional?
Yeah, I mean, you all know that in the military, your time is rarely your own. You always have demands on your time from above, below, and from lateral units and commanders. But as a company commander, platoon commander, as a battalion and brigade commander, I always found you did have a little bit more power over your time and a little bit more power over the time of your subordinates. And for me, where we could, I always put a priority. It was always in one of the top 3 priorities on professional military education and development. Because you need all the physical attributes of being a good soldier, not just fitness, but all your basic military skills, shooting, teamwork, and these kind of things. But you also need the intellectual attributes. Our nations need thinking soldiers, and to have thinking soldiers at every level, you need to hone that intellectual capacity, and that's what good leaders do. They cut out time to provide the incentives for subordinate units and for your own professional development. So, it's about cutting out time, and it's hard. Boy, it's hard. And whether it's, I had an armoured battalion in my last brigade that half an hour before we'd have a big brigade morning tea at the officers' mess every Friday, they would do professional development in the mess. Other units would do a longer monthly session, and I never directed how they did it, but it's like, you are to do it regularly. Brief me on how you're going to do it, but it's about providing the incentives for junior leaders to undertake that.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Yeah. So how do you have a lot of, I guess, a lot of different bricks in the oven when it comes to like the genres that you write in. You have some fiction out there. You're absolutely on top of current events. You do some strategy work. Do you kind of see them kind of feeding each other and inspiring you to kind of get ideas into other areas, or do you kind of bifurcate them and you're like, you know what, I got to keep some things separated because this is a different approach to this approach over here. I mean, what's your perspective on that, Mick?
I think they're all interrelated. I mean, the world's a pretty complex place, and even if you look at your personal life, you've got a spouse or kids or schools and mortgage and cars, and there's a whole lot of different things you kind of got to bring together, even just in your personal life. And I think your profession is the same, and your writing and reading has to be the same. The world, doesn't just sit on one track and one topic. There's a whole range of things that relate to military affairs and the profession of arms, and all of them help kind of hone your critical thinking abilities and your communication skills. So, for me, it's military history. It's fiction. I love science fiction. I've done a few reading lists for that. The next book I've written is actually a historical fiction piece set in the 1980s. So, and I'm happy to preview that if anyone have any questions. But there's a whole range of things, and I guess I've always just been a curious fellow, and I read several hours every day, and that covers a range of different topics. And I write every day, mostly, probably 6 days a week. There's every now and then I have a day I was like, I just don't want to write today, but I am a human after all. But I think you've got to have a broad range of interests to deal with the pace of change in the world today.
Yeah. TJ, you mentioned you work on your PhD in creativity. TJ Clifton, our guy up in Austin here, he's working on his PhD also, right? Right, TJ?
Yes, sir. Actually,
my condolences.
Oh, it's been a road, sir.
It's brutal.
It's been a road. I'm actually preparing for prospectus defense. So I'll be meeting my dissertation chair tomorrow to kind of go over the slides one more time before I go into that piece. But it's called ABD, all but dissertation. So there's no more coursework left. So, and it's as fast as I can get through it, and it's as much time as I want to take on it for the actual data collection for chapter 4. So it's been a long road, but there is light at the end, sir.
Oh, well, congratulations. Yeah, no, I passed my final progress review last week, and my dissertation's done. It's just really to be submitted. I was like you. They said, it's a 4-year full-time process. Nothing takes 4 years. So I've gone through it in about 2, and it's a great thing and a great learning process. But I think it will also be great in the rear view mirror.
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, it was one of the most challenging schools I've attended, as far as just provoking the type of thought to make you really not just see it from one angle, but understand counter arguments to whatever you're trying to get after. And Yes, I mean they say nothing worth doing is easy, right? And you can, when you look in the rearview mirror and see that, I mean you'll be able to take a good deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
for
it's
sure.
it's kind of like being a soldier, right? It's really hard, but also enormously satisfying. And you know, to be honest, I am still a soldier. I'm still a reserve officer. I spent a lot of time in different battalions and brigades in our army. We're, we've been transforming over the last decade to fight our adversary to the big adversary to the north, and I spent a lot of time with one of our expeditionary divisions for that, but also special operations forces. So, you know, so soldiering's still part of what I do. I don't advertise that widely, but I love it. But it's really hard, and it's hard but satisfying. So it's kind of like a PhD. A PhD is more serving ourselves, but being a soldier's serving much bigger purposes.
Yeah. Hey, Mick, just shifting gears a little bit. So I remember reading in your book on the fictional Taiwanese War, you had a lot of research in there about artificial intelligence, right? And can you talk to us a little bit how you got all that research done, like how you got some of that firsthand stuff, and then also does any of the AI, do you use any AI stuff when you're also doing research for, like, I mean, are you using ChatGPT? Are you a lot of our audience are interested in how to use those tools to kind of get after helping them research and write. Can you share your experiences with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been interested in AI for a very long time. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I'm certainly not a coder, but as someone who's looked at how do you build requirements, how might you use it in a military organization, I've written a lot about it, spoken about it. I did a major presentation earlier this year at our Australian National University on how you might use AI to help learning and adaptation in military organizations. I know a few experts in the field in Australia, the United States, the United Kingdom. They're enormously helpful, but they're experts in AI, not in our profession. And it's about how do you merge the two without losing the inherent humanity of our profession? Because at the end of the day, soldering is a human profession, not a technological one. So I do a lot of thinking about it. Well, how do they merge? And so I included it in War Transformed, and then I thought, well, what would this look like? And White Sun War was my attempt to look at it based on trends. But there was stuff the great thing about fiction, unlike a PhD, is when you come up against a brick wall in your research, you can just make stuff up. And that was a great process to try and anticipate. And I think some of it's actually already come to fruition. So, for me, it's about a lot of research, talking to experts, and then imagining how we might be able to use this in a way that's useful to our soldiers, but also, in accordance with their values. We can't forget that AI isn't values free. We have to force values on it. And both our countries have strong ethical values, I think. And we need to ensure our use of AI is in accordance with that. Do I use it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've used a few different forms. Claude, obviously ChatGPT. I did 10 days with Indo-PACOM. Admiral Paparo asked me to come out and spend some time with his headquarters, and it was largely focused just on how Indo-PACOM is using AI, and it is amazing.
Wow.
Just how deeply AI has penetrated into all elements of the staff process, whether it's, closing the kill chain, in the 3, it's supporting Hellscape in Pac Fleet, the planning, agentic planning in the 5. Fortunately, the J5 there is a classmate of mine from Quantico.
Yeah.
And I had several really detailed briefings on how they're using it. The 2 in intelligence packages that used to take weeks now take hours. The 4, she's really engaged in it. I think that's probably where some of the biggest gains will be. So, I'm not only just trying to learn about it, but I'm trying to see where the great use cases are. I found using it for writing not as easy as I would have liked for a couple of reasons. I find in research sometimes it just makes stuff up.
Yeah.
I remember I was doing some research for my PhD and I put in a query about Australian military historical fiction novels. And it came back with 10. And I went, oh, wow, I'd never heard of any of these. So I dug into all of them, and every single one was made up, and every single author was made up.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of went, this is not going to help me in my research. But I also use the generative AI function. Every now and then I'll generate an image for an article because I don't see stuff out there that really fits what I'm writing. So I think generative AI is really helpful. A few years ago, I did a project with a couple of people where we did an illustrated story about AI planning and, the merger of human and machine intelligence in a person. And the illustrations in it were beautiful, done by this young man. But now I imagine I could probably do that myself using generative AI. But the thing is, would I then be denying that young person the ability to express their creativity? So there's that downside, but the plus side is it would take 10% of the time. So there's this balance between respecting human creativity and the talents of others versus just getting stuff done. And in the military, we have to often bias towards the get stuff done.
Yeah, that's good. Jared, so he and I used some AI recently to get some staff processes done. Actually, as you mentioned, in the J4 business or the sustainment business. Jared, what was the name of that AI that we were using to do that?
It's a Perplexity AI. So Perplexity just launched a browser comment where it does everything for you. It literally will build PowerPoints. You can plan a family vacation. It will go to the websites and it'll actually do everything for you.
That's great.
And it's funny, right? We're talking about writing, right? Doing some research as you're talking. I'm chat GPT and some stuff, and it clicked right. Some of the stuff we're talking about, this profession of writing and how we use AI. Prompt engineering is becoming these master level certificates of how you write to tell AI to do something. And I think and it's like kind of the last probably year or two using it, I realize everybody I've been teaching, that's something that's commonly overlooked. Everyone's always like, oh, look how great it can do, right? It can do this writing for you, it can do all these things for you. But how do we talk to it? Well, we have to write that. We have to put that in writing. Act as, a military expert in Northern Australia. Go only off of dedicated facts of lessons learned. And I want to look at a new type of equipment and how that does in this environment. And getting very, very specific, just like, right, with other people, the way people do write, talking to it like it's that 5-year-old, like it's that brand new troop. No, troop, this is how you clean a weapon. This is how you clean a cannon, whatever it is that Colonel Hildebrand with his artillery, that he does. But breaking it down very simple, and you might have to put more into it because people just want to say, create me this article. I want to take 5 seconds and give me a 30-page article. But the stuff that we did, I worked almost 3 hours of different prompts. And if you have any questions, ask me. Let me go through and literally teaching it what we were trying to do. Then after teaching it, using those prompt engineerings, then actually creating that product afterwards. Because we had to teach it, don't do this. Yes, do this. Don't look at this. Look at this. Yeah. And so it is that kind of, even that professions of writing, this senior leader level, writing even to AI has to be a professional style of writing too.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a fantastic point. And if you've written anything or have any cheat sheets, I'd love to get it because the prompts are the key. I mean, that is the I guess the human to AI language. And I find I iterate my prompts to get the kind of product I want, whether it's ChatGPT or generative AI. But I've done a few trials. I put out a weekly update on my Substack, and I thought I'll trial using AI to do that. I just found I couldn't replicate what I was producing. I thought, sometimes it's just got to be done by a human. And, I don't want to rip off my readers by giving them some AI sludge either. But, for research and generative AI, getting those prompts right, I've found is the critical piece. And if you're teaching people how to do that better, but more efficiently, as a soldier, you don't have time to iterate your prompts. Sometimes you just got to put it in and get the outcome if you're under pressure. If you've written anything on that, I'd really love to read it.
No, I haven't written. I don't think anything yet. A lot of it's I'm a very verbal type of guy. Writing is like that's my bugaboo. I'm not very good at that. But
we're in a session talking about writing, right?
I know, right? And that's what, right? And this, right?
Get him, sir. Get him.
Yeah,
and like some of the cheats I've done, I've had AI create me the prompt saying, hey, I need you to create an AI-driven prompt to give me the best results for this. And it gives me, act as this and do this and do this. And so it's even shortcutting what that prompt is. And then you write that human check. Okay, does this make sense? Does this make sense? And so you could even use AI to create your engineered prompt to give you a better result instead of like, did I make sure I touched all the bases I needed to?
Okay. No, I hadn't thought of that, but I'll be giving that a go.
Yeah. That's good. All right. My band director is really quiet for some reason. He hasn't piped up yet.
Well,
What do you got, Chief?
I was interested in that conversation because the initial statement was I got 10 things out of it and all of them were not true, right? and so when you went to Krause, I'm like, okay, at least half of the stuff I've always thought is BS that's coming out of his mouth, and now I know that's correct. So no. In fact, this morning, sir, it's funny we're talking about this stuff. It's great stuff. In my world, I was helping somebody generate basically a narration to video. For our dining out that's coming up. I referenced that this morning, I think, to Colonel Hildebrandt. So, it's interesting how the prompts, what's the prompts, the original content, and when it gets out historically, and you say, okay, now I want it to tie into, the division moving forward, overseas, on the front end, the back end, with trying to link that and how those prompts were key to, putting that together. And then an AI generated narration in the style of a World War II newsreel. I mean, that's where we ended up taking it. And it's just interesting how effective it can be. And again, given the correct prompts and the correct information going in. I haven't gotten past, we've had these discussions before. I need to write it first and then preface, Chat GPT, and then put what got going in and then see what comes out. I have not gone so far as totally original content or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. But for my vein, it's been very effective in what I'm using it for.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen some really good outputs. One of the things I did in Indo-PACOM, they had a bunch of high-level economic experts, quite a few of them from your state, looking at, economic warfare. And while I won't go into the details, they were using AI to produce some products, and it was all based on, Project Maven and these kind of things. So it wasn't totally rogue, but some of the summaries of economic warfare things, I looked at, kind of went, oh, that's totally legit. I mean, that wasn't AI sludge. That was, and they were all looking at it going, wow, that's actually amazing. And I saw it produce it in real time. On a couple of really clever prompts. So, it's not all sludge like some of my personal trials. I mean, if you have the right people putting in the right prompts, boy, you can get some very interesting outcomes. I mean, I saw, one of the things I've seen is senior leadership groups have microphones in their meetings, and it is being recorded into the LLM. And it's learning about how senior leaders make decisions from every senior leader meeting. Where PowerPoint has been replaced with a certain program from the US DoD, where every presentation is written in the AI. Now, it still produces something that looks exactly like PowerPoint.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's recorded. It's there's accountability framework there, but it all goes once again into the LLM, teaching them how military people are making decisions. So there's a whole range of functions beyond just producing documents or pictures, where it's not just producing products, where we're actively involved in teaching these different algorithms and different LLMs to better support us as soldiers to make decisions.
Yeah, that's incredible. So speaking of prompts, Mick, like how often do you get like a writer's block where you have to like, man, I'm on a deadline and I'm just like, I can't get past this hurdle because I got writer's block, and then do you have some techniques? Because you heard Chief talk and you heard Sergeant Krause talk there. Sometimes it's like, how do I just get past that initial hurdle of getting something on paper?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real thing. I mean, I've never really suffered from a profound writer's block, but every now and then I'm kind of like, I don't want to write today, and that might be one day a month. And often what I'll do is okay, I won't, because I know tomorrow I will be desperate to get back into it. So I kind of give myself a bit of a break, but I never have one writing project going at any one time. I normally have 3 or 4. So if I'm finding I don't feel like writing one, I'll just switch to the other. And I'll work on that. And after an hour or two, you'll go, I might switch back to the other one. And that might mean people accuse me of being unfocused. Well, it's a big world, and you've got to be able to focus on multiple things. But I find having 2 or 3 different writing projects going at any one time does help in kind of combating any blocks, because if I don't feel like one, I'll just switch to the other.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think they talk about auditory learners, they talk about visual learners. I think there's a thing as writing learners, right? I learn best when I'm like I'm building something, I'm writing something, I'm producing something. When I'm in that creative moment of making something, that's truly when I I learn best. So I think there might be something too for like lawyers, like they probably have like this compendium of legal attributes in their minds where they can just spew forth greatness, right, Mariah?
Oh, absolutely. They're just spinning around right now. No, but when I actually agree with you. I'm a writing learner as well. Like when I was studying for the bar exam or doing something that I need to remember, like preparing for a case in trial, I write it out and it sticks better because it's like teaching someone. When you teach someone, you retain more because you have to fully understand it in order to then, put forth to people that don't understand it. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So, Mick, you had mentioned you could give us a preview of your next book that you got working up. What do you have on the deck, brother?
Well, I'll give you 2 previews, and I haven't done this for anyone yet. The first one is the book that's done. It's a novel set in the early 1980s. It's Australian, so it's based on a group of Australian soldiers based in Brisbane. The first base I ever was, all Vietnam veterans who are tasked to go explore a mystery left over from World War II on a Pacific island.
Oh, cool.
And, if you've ever studied the Pacific War, it was a very big war over a massive theatre. And there's just a lot of stuff that happened. And there's still things that we can't explain happened. There's still hundreds and hundreds of Allied aircraft that just disappeared.
Yeah.
So they go and do this, and there might be some Russians involved and some Japanese involved and some chemical weapons, a whole bunch of things.
Oh, cool.
So it's kind of what happens on this island. It's a kind of a adventure thriller novel. So that's all done, and I'm hoping that might be a series, because I want to set another one in the Aleutians and another one in the Northern Territory and things like that. So. It's rough title at the moment is called Pacific Dawn. We'll see how that goes with the publisher, but so that's done.
So do you get credit on your PhD for do you get credit for this kind of work when you do stuff like that?
It's an integral part of the PhD. In fact, my supervisors basically said, at the start, just come and write your next novel and that'll be your PhD. I went, oh, brilliant.
That's awesome.
And then they go, oh, by the way, there's a 30,000 word exegesis that goes with it as well. It's like, oh man, you could have told me that before I signed up. So 120,000 words later, it's pretty much ready to be done. But, the exegesis is proposing, something I'm calling histint, which is about how do you use well-designed historical military fiction to foster and develop people today, focusing on all the non-technological elements of soldiering, leadership, understanding surprise and uncertainty, understand the need to learn and adapt in military organizations. So, I think that exegesis alone will be something I'll be interested in publishing. The other novel, obviously, which isn't finished, is still in development, is a sequel to White Sun War. And it will be not so much Taiwan. It will focus on other bits in the Western Pacific. And I think I was in West Point teaching because White Sun War was on the curricula there. So I was teaching that in April, and that gave me an idea for how I might begin the novel. It'll be a strong focus on soldiers, as White Sun War was, because everyone forgets there's lots of green bits in the Western Pacific. It's not just all the blue bits. And that's not meant to denigrate Navy or Air Force whatsoever. It's just armies are still important in the Pacific as well. It'll focus, and it'll have some of the core themes at the tactical level around the integration of technology, the importance of leadership, but also at the strategic level about force regeneration, strategic logistics, force transformation, based on some of the things we've seen in the Middle East and Ukraine, and trying to project forward what that might look like a couple of years after the events of White Sun War.
That's so cool. Yeah, one of my favorite parts of White Sun War, and this is going to show you how big of a nerd I am, Mick, is...
Hey, we're all nerds here.
That's good. I'm numbered in company. That's good. So I love the part, and I'm a big process guy. I really love like the military decision making process and operational design. And there's a part in the book, it's kind of early on, where you start talking about how the G2 they do the intel piece, and basically, and if I can encapsulate that, you basically take something that most people consider pretty boring, like the intelligence summary of, and you made it downright entertaining. To I remember extracting that and giving it to my G2, and I was like, "This is how an intel summary should be done, my friend. Take a look at this." Can you talk a little bit about like interesting parts like that in White Sun War? Because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we've all read these military thrillers that, it's like, yeah, we're going to go do this, let's do it. And it's like, well, no, that's just not how military organizations work at all. It's like, where did you get that from? That's just, pardon the French, it's just bullshit. So I wanted there to be a strong, there's a whole lot of speculative elements, but there has to be a core of reality. And the reality isn't just about technology. The reality is about how military organizations actually work. And, the 2, the 4, the 6, who are often the most underappreciated people in a military organization, as well as chaplains, bandies, and lawyers, all have really important roles to play. And so I thought, well, let's have the 2 doing this brief, but use it as a mechanism to look at, well, what are the kind of options China had with Taiwan? And, I've never thought a blockade was viable for Taiwan. And, a lot of recent reporting has proved that out. It's just not viable for many strategic reasons. So I just thought, I could use the 2 brief to do that. And, another thing, a couple of people being very critical of, going, oh, it's a very woke novel. I went, well, why is that? And they said, oh, you've got, female soldiers in it. I said, have you actually seen the army today? What it's like? And the top tank troop leader in my brigade was a young female lieutenant. And she wasn't a female lieutenant. She was an Armored Corps lieutenant. Armies have moved on. And so I just wanted to reflect the in the novel what our armies just look like now.
Yeah.
There's nothing woke about it. It's just what they look like.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent. That's an excellent point. So it looks like our friend Sam made it. Sam, I see you poking your head over there at TJ.
I
So
did.
Sam's
I executed my pace plan and got out of my dead zone.
Okay.
But had a question on the fiction piece. I find that fiction is actually a much better way to explore a variety of topics, but specifically in military thought. What advantages do you find that writing fiction has over memoir or straight history?
Yeah, I think it's a really important point. You can cover controversial or difficult topics in fiction in a way that sometimes you can't in non-fiction, particularly new ways of fighting, new ways of integrating technology. So I think it's important to do that in fiction, and you can do it in a way that's more accessible, as in entertaining and using plain English, which sometimes we as soldiers are bad at. Without using all the arcane lexicon and acronyms that we just are addicted to. Now, we do that for good reason under most circumstances, but sometimes you need to use a different language, and fiction is that language. It's also a good way of kind of translating our profession for the vast majority of our citizens who aren't part of the profession of arms, and to kind of tell them, well, this is what it's like. These are the kind of pressures we're likely to face in the future.
Yeah.
And we need your help. We need your support. We need, to recruit from our people, from our society. We need, budgetary support, and that's where military fiction originally came from, was soldiers. George Chesney, writing in his first novel, was all about trying to convince British politicians to fund the British Army in the 1870s. So there's a tradition of military fiction getting at not just entertainment, but being used to influence politicians and members of societies to support the military, but also explain the military as it is and how we might like it to be.
Yeah. You mentioned old fiction. Wasn't there one called Driftler's Druff? Oh, I'm messing it up.
Duffer's Drift. Yeah.
Duffer's Drift. Yeah.
yeah.
Where the Boer War, and
Yeah.
like redoing like Groundhog Day over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the lead up to World War One, there's a huge body of military fiction that came out because it was a very similar age to it. There was a massive shift in technology in the 2 decades before World War One. You saw motor cars, airplanes, wireless technology, mass production. You saw a whole range of developments in chemical warfare, but also in chemicals for explosives and other things, in medicine. And people were trying to deal with that disruptive change through the use of fiction. So you saw George Chesney, The Battle of Dorking, but you saw it in France. Bernardi in Germany wrote about air fleets in 1900. And in America, my favourite is a book by the author Frank Stockton called The Great War Syndicate, which is about America going to war with England. And what happens is a group of 28 industrialists go to Congress and say, give us the contract, we will fight the war on America's behalf. And you go, wow, you talk about military industrial complex.
Yeah.
Here's a guy talking.
Yeah. Hey, I think I lost audio.
I did too.
Hey, Mick, I think we lost your audio on that last part.
Oh, okay.
There
Have
we
you
go.
got me still?
Yeah, we got you now. Yeah.
So, it
You
just
were saying
speaks.
something brilliant, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so. But, it just speaks to the pace of change and the bewilderment a lot of people felt with that pace of change. And fiction in that era, just as it is in our era, can really help people deal with that change.
Yeah. And technology, it seems, it's always a relevant topic for the military, right? And I think, we kind of have in the military this, I don't want to say fear, but definitely a reservation that, machines can't make decisions for us. Yes, that's true. But like, we have to live with technology. We have to stay abreast. And sometimes I think you have this curve, this learning curve in the military, where some folks are like, "Hey, that's too high tech for me. I don't want to mess with that. I don't want to learn that." Right? And they just let it pass them by. And I think I've written some pieces on that part. I did a piece for Military Review on the fourth domain and the importance of technology and the learning them and incorporating it into our learning institutions. But also, I think when it comes to like lessons learned, that's where we get some of the most relevant discussions. Is like, what are we seeing with drones? What are we seeing with counter UAS? Um, I think Sam, were you working? You were writing on something like similar to that, weren't you? I know not to put you on the spot, but you got something that you're drumming up on that topic, right?
My main focus right now is information warfare and leveraging how tactical commanders can leverage it, especially using bot armies and stuff like that. And I think there's been lots of big strategic writing on it when it comes to elections and stuff like that. But how can we exploit it, down at that brigade level is something that I'm really interested in starting to pull together.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic. I mean, info ops and influence has been part of war since the first caveman picked up a rock and threw it at his neighbor and then looked at the person standing next to him and said, "Look what I did to him. I'll do it to you as well if you're not careful." I mean, so violence and influence have gone together for thousands of years. What's new now is, as you point out, some of the new technologies, not just AI, but, big data, social media, group dynamics modeling, game theory, allow us to conduct very precise targeting and to measure the impact of the messaging that goes out there in a way that's unprecedented. Now, largely this is done at national and sub-national levels because, the Chinese approach to this is if you convince Americans that China's not an enemy and they don't need to fight us, we've won. And that's, that's a large part of Russian and Chinese misinformation operations. Right. Convince the world the devil doesn't exist.
That's right.
But at the tactical level, it's a bit more difficult. It's got to be a bit more sophisticated than dropping leaflets across the enemy's trenches saying we're going to bomb the heck out of you tomorrow. So, I applaud the work you're doing because it's not easy down at company, battalion, brigade, division level to really crack this art. And it is an art. It uses technology, but at the end of the day, it's an art.
Yeah. Hey, you've mentioned Ukraine. I see the Ukrainian flag in your background. You do a lot of writing on there. How much time when you're writing like that subject? Obviously, you want to get firsthand information. So, how much time do you find yourself close to those sources, like in Ukraine, and like close to the battlefront or close to like where the action's happening, and almost like you're being a reporter, but you're kind of talking about your strategy piece, and how does that inform you? We had a previous guest, John Spencer. He did a lot of traveling in that sense.
John's great. John's
he's
brilliant.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so I just like to hear your perspective. We heard his, and so I think everyone's perspective is unique. So please share how you go to kind of go about that process when you do that stuff.
Yeah. Firstly, John's a friend. I've known him for a long time, and he's a brilliant officer, brilliant human, and just has done some spectacular work.
Yeah,
I think published through Modern War Institute primarily. I have an affiliation with Modern War Institute. I love them dearly. So, you've got to get out and walk the ground. You can't do this vicariously. So, I've done multiple visits to Ukraine. I'm about to go back on another one. There's so much change going on. It's a different war every 6 months.
Yeah.
And my last visit, I spent a fair bit of time out east from Kharkiv down Liman, Kramatorsk into Dnipro. And one day I was down on the front line with a brigade, and in a subterranean bunker because everything's underground, everything. And I just had the whole afternoon one-on-one with the brigade commander talking about what does brigade commander look like now?
Wow.
Because it looks different to when I was a brigade commander. And, you know, every Ukrainian brigade has a drone battalion. Every Ukrainian battalion has a drone company. And they also have integral drones in all their elements. And that's just the organisational piece. But how they fight, how they use technology is just unbelievable. So how they think constantly evolves. Tactics are evolving every single month. Drone tactics are evolving weekly. Drone technology daily. There's an adaptation battle that's occurring at a pace that's largely incomprehensible to people if you don't go there. And it's not just the military, industry's evolving quickly. So walking the ground, talking to people, you know, I've just hosted a couple of Ukrainian officers here who are going to then host me in Ukraine at a few assault brigades in a couple of months. That is crucial. Now, I've done the same in Israel. You know, I went into Gaza with an Israeli division commander, spent some time up on the northern front with the northern commander, talking through the entire shaping operation before they went into southern Lebanon. You get insights you just can't get otherwise. But, you know, when I talk to these folks, I say, well, what can I write about and what can I not write about? I'm very upfront with them. And, you know, they'll often say, you can write about this. This you can tell your army, but not write about. And, you know, I had a day with the commander of unmanned systems forces in March in Ukraine, and he said, let's not give you anything you can write about, but I'm going to sit down and whiteboard the entire operating concept and command and control of the entire unmanned systems force from the front line all the way through to the strategic level and interaction with industry. And it just was amazing. So I write a report for my chief of army, and the Ukrainians are happy with that, which isn't public. So there's a balance between public advocacy, public influence and information, and then there's the other stuff I do that goes to our chief of army, our commander special operations, our brigade commanders.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Well, you said you got a trip to Austin coming up, huh?
Yeah, I'm coming over late September to speak at a conference there. It's actually an AI conference run by the Special Competitive Studies Project out of Washington, D.C. And I'll be launching a new report, which is called Adaptation War, which looks at how the Ukraine-Russia adaptation interaction and, you know, adaptation battle has now metastasized into a global adaptation war involving China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. And what are the implications of that for the new U.S. national defense strategy that's coming out next year?
Yeah, cool. So it's so when you come into Austin, look me up. We'll get together. I'll invite you over to the 36th Infantry Division, give you a tour of the building and all that business.
Yeah, sure. No, I'll let you know the dates.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been fortunate. I've had a few friends in the US system, in the National Guard. A good friend who was a senior officer in the Pennsylvania National Guard, which is like, the National Guard is these massive organisations. I look at it and go, boy, Pennsylvania National Guard's bigger than the Australian Army.
Huge.
So these are big, capable and connected organisations that, you know, aren't the Army Reserve. And, you know, a lot of countries don't understand the US National Guard system. It's like you've got to kind of go back to the 1780s and late 1770s to really understand the genesis of it. But once you do, it kind of makes sense. And, you know, I'm not sure whether you're reading Atkinson's series on the
I am.
More of Independence, the second one, Fate of the Day. I'm almost finished. You know, it just explains so much about American culture and the genesis of so many ideas about America that you have to read that stuff if you really want to understand modern America. Yeah.
Well, I cheat a little bit. I have a book on tape. So I'm on the border. I drive, you know, our border in Texas is massive. So I just go one place on the border to the other is like a 5-hour drive, and there's nothing, you know, get good cell phone reception. So basically I listen to Rick Atkinson's Day of Fate on my trip. So it's good. But hey, Mick, thank you for your time. we're reaching the end of the hour here, so a lot of us have meetings up against this. So I know my guys are getting fidgety trying to they know they got their next meeting lined up, but we're super, super grateful that you made some time for us. I know it's early over there in Brisbane. So thank you so much. And I'll turn it over to you for any final things you want to say to the audience or us.
Well, firstly, once again, thank you for the invitation. Any time spent with soldiers for me is an absolute joy. So I really appreciate it. I really do appreciate what you're doing to hone your minds as part of your service to your community as well as to your nation. I think it's important that your country builds smart soldiers, not just good soldiers, but smart soldiers. And I went through that material you sent through on the entire program, and it's brilliant. It really is a brilliant program. I'd love to see more of it. So thank you for allowing me to be part of it. I'm always happy to answer any questions from anyone moving forward, but all the best with your important mission to, part of defending the border and defending America. It's an important mission, and hopefully this is helping you do that better.
It is. Yep. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Yep. You too. All the best, everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.